as an organization, we have adopted AI in certain parts of our business. Without talking about the tools that we've adopted, we do have a partnership with Microsoft, and some of our research is being done by AI. And of course, we don't publish anything which is simply AI generated, right? It has to be reviewed completely within our systems first, and then it needs to have a human element onto it before it is actually published. Right? So again, what I'm going to say, you've heard before 1,000 times, AI is absolutely here to stay and it will stay. But like everybody else says, it definitely needs that human element. We need to start off with, and I don't know how many companies do this, but training of the AI appropriately. You have an LLM, you don't assume that the LLM knows everything. It certainly does know everything which is unique to you. Now, just to give you an example, as far as ChatGPT is concerned, I've been using ChatGPT for the past 2.5 years now, which is shocking as to how far it's come. I haven't deleted any of my cookies. I haven't deleted any of my browser history. So now ChatGPT has a profile of who I am. 2.5 years ago, it didn't. So now when I'm able to speak to the model, right, it gives me responses customized to me as a person, what I can do to be able to move forward. And I find that very unique. But that came with 2.5 years of, without even thinking about it, training the AI model.
Right.
Now, when I talk to ChatGPT, it talks back to me in a language that makes sense. Now, just to give you a bit of a humorous example, I've been trying to teach myself IS. It's typically spoken in Jamaica, right? It's a blend of English and French Creole. I remember way back in the early 90s, I would watch a lot of cricket, and I would especially be intrigued by when the West Indians would play India, right? And they would speak a very unique dialect. So
Yeah.
I'll be very fascinated by that. And every once in a while, I chat with ChatGPT in Patwa, and it chats back to me in that language, right? So it knows my interests, it knows my hobbies, it knows the technical things that I want to learn, and therefore gives me customized responses. So I know that I'm going on a tangent, but training the model is extremely important. You need to be able to train it for a good amount of years. And I promise you, a good amount of years before you can confidently say that it's giving you the right kind of responses. Right? There will be hallucinations, there will be issues. You need to go back to the model, you need to be able to correct it. Right? That's where the human intervention is critical. And of course, the human being needs to know everything about that particular business. So it's trained by, let's say, an expert. Obviously, I'm an expert on my own life, right? Nobody knows me better than myself. It's the same thing with a business. So let's say, Prahlad, you are training an AI, let's say on a banking system. You need to know enough about the system so that you can train the AI with everything. So that's step number one.
Correct.
Step number two is, as far as you are concerned, or AI is, or human beings are concerned, is every output needs to be validated by a human being. Right? Again, to quote Bruce Lee, right? Take what works for you and discard what doesn't. Right? The AI will give you certain outputs. You need to sit down and be able to look through it and say, well, this is what works for my business within this context, and that is what doesn't work. You can take that and formulate that into a plan or into a strategy, or you can train the AI saying, this is what might work for me, this is what might not work for me. Right? No telling whether it will get it correct just yet. The most sophisticated models could do that. Right? And then eventually, when you present it to people, you need to be able to also be confident enough to say, I've worked with AI to be able to produce this kind of output, this is the review, just so that there's complete transparency. I don't see people doing that. Now, when, let's say, I make a presentation or I make a document, I will tell people that, hey, you know what, this has been created and assisted with AI. So the way I look at AI right now is it's an extremely valuable tool for research, extremely valuable tool for insights. It also helps with productivity, and it also helps with skills. Ultimately, you do need the human element to be able to tell the story, to present the research, and to be able to ensure that the output is absolutely ethical. Because you can get, I mean, you you can do things with AI that could be very, very unethical very, very quickly. So you need to also have a very strong moral compass, is what I'm saying. I've seen examples of people using AI and the output is extremely fanciful, but has absolutely no substance
Hmm.
between it, right? So there's a lot of style, there's no substance, and the complete character of the presentation or the output is missing. So it's a bit of a strong statement for me to make, right? AI stylistically can give you great amounts of output. You need to be able to have the information, the character, the substance to be able to prompt it further, right? It will only give you outputs to the quality of questions that you ask. So again, being able to educate yourself and sharpen your axe is important. Being able to not take things at face value and do the research is important. And then being able to, optimize the way you produce the output is very important. So AI is here to stay, but we also need to be extremely ethical with how we're using AI so that when we are communicating with people, our communication channels get better. In time, I know AI will replace certain jobs as far as humans are concerned, but that will also give birth to a lot more new jobs. I mean, if you look at the Industrial Revolution, I think way back in the 70s, you needed typists because that was like a very big thing. You needed a stenographer, you needed people who could work on the telegrams and the postal services. Those jobs don't exist, but now you have a social media marketing
Correct.
specialist, right? In the future, you probably will need a chief wellness officer. So
Correct.
I do tell people, please adopt AI 100%. Don't be against it, but also use the judgment that you have as a human being because reasoning, empathy are some things which come for us, which the model doesn't fully get right now. I can tell you AI does get empathy very well. It can empathize with you. AI does understand feelings. It absolutely does, right? When you communicated with a certain emoji, it also kind of knows how you feel depending on the prompt.
Interesting.
It is a very, very powerful tool. So I tell people, please embrace it fully. Learn how to use it and learn how to use it very, very well. It's like playing a piano, right? You start learning, let's say, a couple of notes. Couple of years down the line, you're playing Brahms' Lullaby. 7 or 8 years, you're playing Johann Sebastian Bach. Learn how to use AI, but again, use your own character. The reason I'm giving you a piano example is because I'm going to quote Beethoven. Sure, you've heard of Beethoven. Beethoven had this beautiful piece called Fur Elise. Unfortunately, it's now elevator music. You hear it in every single elevator and restroom, which is
Correct.
sad, right? But it's such a beautiful example for life and AI because Beethoven was tone deaf.
Yeah.
When he was a child, he memorized all the notes on the piano, right?
Hmm.
And he fell in love with a lady called Eliza, and he wrote this piece called Fur Elise. Fur is for Eliza, right? It's a beautiful, peppy, I hate the word peppy, it's a very uplifting, vivacious piece. And when you listen to Fur Elise, right, as a listener, you feel full of joy, you feel full of life. Right? I don't really know why it's in the elevators. Maybe elevators are just dull places. Now, Ferrelli spurned Beethoven's overtures and went out with Beethoven's friend, right? And the man was so depressed that he wrote this other piece called the Moonlight Sonata. Now, why this piece is so close to my heart is because I was very intrigued with this piece and I learned how to play the new Moonlight Sonata on the piano. And I can tell you, every time I play the Moonlight Sonata, the pianist is so depressed. You feel like so much energy has been stolen away from you, right? It's the same with the listener. So if you're sitting down in my house, let's say you're having a little cocktail and I play the Moonlight Sonata for you, you immediately you start getting a little depressed, right? And I'm not talking about the physically depressed, but your entire body tends to go down. Your spine is compressed. Depression is a state, right? It's the same with AI. Right? I need to know how to use the AI to be able to deal with you as a person, right? If I go back to you and I give you as a person, if you consume information, let's say in small bits, and I give you this, huge process document which is 300 pages, I know for a fact that you won't read it. Let's say you are a person who actually does like information in great amounts of detail. You want the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, the threats. And I give you, let's say, a two-line statement. Again, you'd say probably Kabir hasn't researched this thing at all. So I need to know how to use it to be able to deal with people, right? So the human intervention is so important. That's what we're forgetting, right? It's easy to replace certain administrative jobs with AI, but working with the machine, being able to understand its outputs, training it is critical for us as human beings. And that's where in my opinion, I feel people are making the mistake saying they will replace us. They won't replace us. We do need to know how to work with it because everything we do depends on how you deal with other people. Right? People come together to have businesses and jobs, right? If you have two machines working with each other, where is the economy? It doesn't exist. Again, that's a bit of a long drawn answer, Prahlad. I hope that
I think it's very well articulated, and thanks for that. Um, what 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 was what was fascinating was, the the more you explain what it takes to be able to make some sense of how AI should work.
Mhm.
I think there's a whole set of proficiencies that people need to have to be able to probably maximize how best they could work with AI and be able to uh, uh, make efficiencies happen and so on.
That's right.
So in that context, uh, if I look at, let's say, AI proficiency itself as one of the requirements of talent going forward,
Mhm.
how would you look at, let's say, I mean, if I pull a leaf out of your book and say that, look, you're looking at how you could future-proof Moody's, and there is an AI adoption process that has to happen, to be able to be effective. And there is a whole set of skills and proficiencies required, however soft they could be, which are going to help the organization become AI proficient. So is there a game plan that you have? Is there a strategy that is in place to be able to make this happen as part of Moody's right now?
So the answer is both yes and no. Yes, there is a game plan, absolutely, right? We're always thinking about how we can train people, how to use different models, different prompts, and different frameworks, right? The reason I'm saying no is because things are changing so quickly
Hmm.
and so rapidly. You can see on my LinkedIn, I'm posting prompt frameworks. We just settled into using AI and prompting and using chain of thought prompting. And now you have agentic AI. And then you have something called the RAG module, the RAG, retrieval augmented generative module, if my memory
Yes.
serves. So things are changing so quickly. So for us, it's A, utilizing a plan, and B, realigning rigorously with the market, right? Because you put together a plan saying, I'm going to teach people how to use these various different prompts and how to be able to prompt the AI to give you context in the output that you want so that you can take it and you can work on it and then you can present it to people. And then once you start with that, you've got now the AI agent. And then what people are possibly not thinking about is a form of AI existed even before we started talking about AI. To give you an example, Microsoft has the Microsoft Power Platform. Microsoft maybe didn't do the best job communicating about the Power Platform. So you have Power BI, which everybody has been using. You also have something called Power Pages. You have Power Automate, and the fourth Power, I don't remember what it was called back then, but it's called Copilot Studio. Power Automate was set up to be able to automate your processes. It is a form of AI that exists. Again, it goes back to training the model to follow the right steps. So we're looking both forward and backward, right? How do you train people on slightly legacy AI systems that existed? training people on AI that happens right now, and always realign, right? What's coming up in the pipeline? How can we at least introduce people to that so that they don't go, oh, we've just finished this, now we need to finish that. It's kind of showing them here's what's coming up 6 months from now. So at least let's start talking about it. For us, that's the ground reality, and that's what I've accepted to be true. And we're working towards that, right? Because AI can work on itself so quickly, it's important for us to be able to also keep up to date with the newer technologies as quickly as possible. I hope that gives you
No, it does. Thank you. Thank you for that. Um, so there are two sides to it in terms of what you mentioned. A, there is this whole skilling piece, in terms of let's say skilling in terms of how you can get into prompt effectiveness, how you could look at evaluating data. And there's a whole side to it which you mentioned earlier about the sensitivity in being able to work with AI. So, so would you be addressing both these as part of your future proofing initiatives? Because I think, in my view, the second is a lot more complex. The first is perhaps very doable with a certain amount of time. How do you go about doing that? I mean, how do you get them to be more ethical about how they work on being able to own up to the fact that they work with AI? AI cannot be mistaken for plagiarism. I mean, it is not. I mean, it is just a some portion of intellect that is available at this point in time. So, so how exactly would you sensitize people to the appropriate use of AI and how to get the best out of it?
That's quite a question. I might not have the best answer. I might not even have an answer, but I'll give you my opinion in this
Yeah,
case.
sure.
When I work with my team, right, and when you look at work and there are AI outputs, the first question that we always ask people is, listen, has this been fact checked completely, right? Everything that you're saying, has this been backed up with data? Can you go ahead and give me the sources, and can you give me the references? And always going back to look at the sources and references just to make sure that what we're providing to people is true, and it's not just a figment of the AI's imagination. I don't believe I just said that, right? Checking information, providing data sources is so critical for us, because you can quite literally get the AI to write up a story as to why something which has been tried and tested for so many years is false, and it'll come back to you with a very convincing story about that. Right? So, fact checking, providing sources, correct, and then of course, when we're making maybe extremely sensitive presentations, is running through that presentation a couple of times. So nothing has changed. Even right now, when we make set detailed presentations to our leadership, practice that, right? It's the same thing, right? You've got an output. Maybe instead of taking 3 weeks to get that output, you've got maybe you did that in 1 week. It still does take that amount of time. Right? You've got better data and you've got better sources. Now let's sit down, fact check it, let's practice it, and then let's present it to people. So those controls are always in place, and I think talking about it is good. The next year, perhaps it could be AI adoption. How many people have actually adopted the model, right? Maybe year three could be AI time saved as a result of that, and maybe fourth year could be quality of output. So I think the measurement systems need to be defined for 2 or 3 years, right? In year number one, you might not actually get quality of AI output. Right? But if you know you're heading towards that direction, you say every year strategically, I will measure this and see what went wrong. I think that would make for a good measurement system. Okay, that is something which I worked on for a lot. I won't take the name of the company, but in 4 years, I measured just one particular metric, looking at 4 or 5 different parameters. And that made so much sense to me.
Right.
So staying true to, let's say, one path for a period of time also makes sense.
Absolutely.
So that's something I'd like to leave people with is also defining your measurement metric strategically over a period of time and then working towards that. That gives you that North Star direction or a compass. And then, when you wake up in the morning and you get into work, it just no longer let me respond to 500 different emails, but let me work towards that particular objective. That's what we need to start doing as people and as businesses.
Interesting. Uh, the other thing that one gets to hear, I mean, is that there is so much of focus on AI literacy, but very little on AI proficiency. And the two, I think, are quite different. So I think maybe it's also time to look at how people can migrate from this literacy to proficiency. Because with proficiency, I think comes enhanced literacy. So I think it's again a self-satisfying prophecy in terms of how the whole cycle goes. But that was just a thought. Um, the one other area that, as I kind of begin to wind down, was about this whole concept of development of proficiency.
Mhm.
In fact, I'm just wondering as to what your experiences have been in terms of adoption of learning when it comes to different things that you do. It was interesting because there was a study which said that I think it was an MIT study. That
Mhm.
when it came to self-paced learning,
Right.
it is just about 3% of people who actually completed a course. And that was with MIT free content, which probably among the best in the world.
That's
So,
right.
so there was a school of thought which basically said that human beings aren't really designed for this kind of solitary discipline. I think they worked best in tribes. They worked with deadlines, peers, competition, even
Mhm.
back as guiding principles of how learning went.
Right.
It also raised another very interesting thing. Quite recently, there was this very large IT services company which actually put out a statement which said that they had trained about 200,000 people in AI proficiency, and they were all certified. It sounded really impressive.
Some understands. Yeah.
And then there was this person who made a comment on Twitter that said that, look, while this may have happened, there were four people who were staying with me in my room who just clicked next all through
Exactly.
and then got certified, which raises some serious questions of, are we certifying completion, or are we certifying competence? So there are some schools of thought in how learning and training is actually being measured, metricized, and in terms of being able to understand reality. What are your views on something like this, Kabir?
So, Prahlad, you have to keep me honest on this one. I know we have 4 minutes, and I can speak about this for hours on end. So you tell me when to stop talking, right?
Yeah.
I think you hit the nail on the head, my friend. Learning is a social skill, right? From the time we were born, right, we learn through being social, right? Learning at its fundamental root is behavior. You imitate somebody's behavior and then you learn. I'll give you a very simple example. When we were born, right, your mother held you in her arms and said, say mama, say mama, say mama. You heard that. You didn't understand linguistics. You didn't understand the science of sound and communication. One fine day, you look at your mother, you put your lips together, you made that nasal sound and you said mama for the first time, right? That nasal sound and that vowel sound came together and you made that. It was actually a very, very complicated process if you think about that, the science of communication. You're probably 3 months old, but you're communicating. You're doing something that you've never done before because you behaved like your mother. Right through school and college, we learn from people. We learn in classrooms with people. You learn what other people are doing. You imitate other people, right? Right now, who I am right now is probably an imitation of three or four people. I'm trying to imbibe all their qualities and I'm presenting myself to you today. So learning is absolutely a social sport, it's a social science. Those self-paced learnings, I can tell you for a fact they're good, but they need to be augmented with other learning modules, right? So for example, to use one technical term that we use in the learning and development industry is if it's just self-paced learning, it may fail. But if it's blended with, say, an intervention or a check-in or a presentation of what you've done, that's when human beings learn, right? If you're just in a room like this and you have an e-learning, you will do exactly what most people did. You click next, 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 finish it, go back to responding to your email. So self-paced learning has its place, but it needs to be augmented with other things. I remember the first time I did a self-paced learning was, my goodness, I think it was in 2013. That was the first time I did a self-paced learning. So my entire life has been social learning in a classroom. And the first time I did it, I was like, I'm not learning anything. I'm just reading off a PowerPoint screen,
Right.
right? And it was a unique experiment for me. And I saw some really good self-paced learnings, which were interactive and stuff like that. But it can only be interactive for 10, 15 minutes. After that, again, you're just staring at a computer screen. So people, trainers, HR professionals, businesses need to understand that. We're celebrating completion rates. We're sending out passive aggressive email completion reminders. That's not what we need to do. Right? Even if we get to literacy first, I'm okay with that. We need to work towards people displaying proficiency. That's step number two, is getting them to do something again and again and again, right? And then we'll get, let's say, to expertise. So people need to understand, number one, you can't hurry learning and development, because that's what I get all the time. I need people certified on this by such and such a date. My answer is yes, I can certify them. I can't guarantee that they will do this. So you can't hurry this skill. The second thing is people need to be able to take their own time. And then people need to learn in groups with other people, because that's how they learn.
Thank you for that. I think we're just about hitting the mark, but I'm just taking a minute longer if that's okay with you.
First,
Yeah. So just wanted to get any kind of pointers, guidelines, or advice that you would have for young professionals who are just kind of graduating or getting into careers right now, in the context of what you think is required to future-proof themselves. I mean, what do you say? I mean, that's really the question that I want to end with. So take as long as you want on that question.
thank you, Prahlad. So I've always done this thing for myself. This is something which has worked for me. So I would say the same thing to young professionals. Take this if it works for you. If it doesn't, absolutely no problem. But I always take a long, hard look at my career every 5 years.
Okay.
And I say if I learned something new, and if I haven't, I sort of work feverishly to be able to get to learning a new skill. So I'm always thinking about reinventing myself every 5 years. That's something which has worked for me. And that's the same thing I would say to young professionals without getting too technical or quoting any social sciences, really. Things change rapidly. What I was doing 5 years ago is not what I'm doing right now. Absolutely not. It's a complete 180. What I will be doing in 5 years now will be very different from what I'm doing now. So always take a long, hard look at your skills and learn new skills. And when I'm talking about learning new skills, I'm not only talking about skills at work.
Right.
Learn a variety of skills. Play a new sport. Okay. Learn how to cook 4 or 5 different types of food. Right. Learn learn how to drive. Let's say if you can't drive a car, learn how to drive a car, ride a bike, or something like that. Because you will notice the more skills you have, right, everything comes together, and then every other thing also begins to make sense. That's what I would say to people is learn a variety of things in social settings and work settings. That kind of completes you, that makes you whole. And that gives you a really good quality of life. That's what I would say to people.
Thank you, Kabir. I think it was an absolutely delightful conversation this morning. Must thank you for your time and for your insights. Wonderful talking to you, and hope to stay in touch and hope to be able to learn from you a little more as we go along. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Moon, as well, for this opportunity. It's really nice speaking to you. Take care.
Thank you, Kabir.